Maritime ideas. Maritime ideas consist of the Seahawks, the Merchant Marines, the Sheltered Ports, Grand Navy, Ship's Penny, Excellent Shipwrights, and Naval Fighting Instruction. So the first idea, Seahawks, provides +1 yearly, although it's doled out on a monthly basis, Navy tradition. How do you use this effectively? Well, basically it's a slight passive buff for your trade steering, for your privateer effectiveness, for your sailor income, for your naval morale, but it's a very marginal bonus, this idea. Merchant Marine, the second idea, +50% sailor modifier. Usage cases, how do you use this effectively? You use this effectively if you're a very small nation with only a very little amount of coast, but you want to run an actual non-zero amount of ships, which would otherwise deplete your sailor pool. So usually, this isn't quite as necessary for having a transport fleet or a combat fleet because they sit in port and don't cost you sailors most of the time. But a merchant fleet, which is out and about doing things, constantly costs you sailors. So if you're a small nation that wants to have a large merchant fleet, this idea is actually somewhat useful. Sheltered Ports, the third idea, provides you with +10 global ship repair rate and -20% sailor maintenance. How do you best use this? Well, it helps you repair ships faster, which encourages you leaving them mothballed. So leave them mothballed, it's a saving to your economy, but you leave your, sorry, I should say that more in a better way. Leave your combat fleet mothballed, so your heavies or your galleys, whilst still running your merchant ships. Then when there's a war declared, unmothball them and they'll build back up to full strength more quickly than they would otherwise with this idea. Meanwhile, the sailor maintenance component of this idea is basically just an extra flavour or a slightly different flavour of the plus extra sailors from the previous one. Obviously, -10% sailor maintenance isn't useful if you're only really running a combat fleet or a transport fleet where they sit in port and they don't cost you maintenance, but it is effectively a sailor increase if you are running a trade fleet or any number of real trade fleets. The fourth idea, Grand Navy, +50% naval force limit modifier. So seeing as we've had 3 ideas so far which help you increase your effective sailor rate, this idea gives you larger naval force limit to use those sailors on. You can have more ships. So this allows you to run a much larger navy than you would be able otherwise without running into the extra maintenance cost for running over the force limit. This may help to relieve the possible stress of having to choose between merchant, transport, or combat fleets and instead allow you to have as much of each as you want, or potentially to allow you to expand your economic warfare via expanded trade protection and pirating. So you might already have as much of a merchant fleet at home, defending your home trade node or the trade nodes of interest for you for funneling money into your effectively home trade node. But you might have a nearby trade node that's nice and valuable, and well, if you've got all this extra naval force limit sitting around, you might as well build a pirate fleet to go pirate that money, not only to increase your own economic strength, but as always, it's a zero-sum game. All the money that you're taking is money that someone else isn't getting. So you're weakening your potential enemies. Fifth idea, ship's penny. Ships are cheaper. So far we've had the ability to have more ships, the ability to make sure those ships have sailors in them. Now we've got make those ships cost less, helping you build them more cheaply and to maintain them. So this helps to reduce those, which is also worth thinking about in terms of the return on investment time for trade ships. If your trade ships cost 10% less, then obviously, or they cost 10% less to buy and 10% less to maintain, then it becomes more and more feasible to run them profitably even in relatively low or marginal economic cases. The penultimate idea, excellent shipwrights, +2 naval leader maneuver. So your admirals and explorers will get bonus pips to maneuver. If they went above the cap, if they rolled an initial distribution with above the cap, those points flow over into other areas. So it directly leads to extra naval maneuver and can occasionally lead to rollover pips in other areas. Now, what does naval maneuver do for you? Well, on a combat fleet, it helps your fleet catch up to and lets you get an engagement with enemy fleets that would otherwise just outrun you. It lets you hunt down enemies. It also boosts your admiral's effectiveness for enhancing the trade power of your merchant fleets. So it isn't just useful for combat, it's also useful for peacetime or for a nation that's trying to concentrate on trade, or more accurately, trade ship-based trade. Yes. Oh, and finally, it is worth mentioning that it is a really significant bonus for speeding up naval exploration. Exploration actions, so exploring the terra incognita with a explorer, takes a long time. The extra maneuver is a % modifier for how long it takes to move from province to province, including exploration. And so because exploration is a large base number, the % modifier is a larger total saving. So it really helps speed up naval exploration. The final idea, plus 50% blockade efficiency. Basically, you don't need as many ships to blockade the same amount of base tax worth of base development worth of provinces. Just make sure you don't split up your fleet so much that the enemy can pop their navy out of a province in the coast and beat up the couple of ships that you've got blockading. Yeah. This lets you therefore, obviously, blockade more effectively, which helps you increase enemy war exhaustion rate, increasing their willingness to peace out. It helps speed up sieges because you're going to be able to maintain full blockaded on a larger number of enemy provinces to get the bonus torch sieges, as well as to deny a larger amount of economic output from the blockaded provinces to your enemies. Finally, the finisher. Ships can repair when in coastal sea zones. So your fleets don't need to go into dock in your provinces, in the provinces you control, to repair. Repairing as long as they aren't in deep ocean tiles and outside of your supply range. Eventually, if they're outside of your supply range, they would be repairing and taking damage at the same time, and eventually the away from controlled sea areas modifier will stack up enough to overcome your ability to repair. However, it is especially useful when doing the blockading actions, and you beat up an enemy fleet, your ships have taken some damage, but you don't want to send them home to repair because it's a long way away, because you want to get on with sieging your enemy, with blockading them, and instead of sending them home and needing to repair them, they can just repair in place whilst blockading. So, in summary, maritime ideas provide a lot of bonuses towards extra sailor income and minimizing sailor use, as well as allowing the running of a larger navy by means of extra force limit modifier and making ships cheaper to buy and maintain in terms of ducats, not just sailors. It provides some combat and economic bonuses in the form of additional naval leader maneuver, which is a passive economic buff, and makes micromanagement of fleets easier with the global repair finisher.